American Water Polo.
Hi, this is Damon Newman from American Water Polo, and we're here today with Peter Ollis from Monmouth College to help us better understand the college recruiting process. How you doing, Peter?
Good, how you doing?
I'm doing well. I'm doing well, holding up. Here in Pennsylvania. So tell me a little bit about yourself and Monmouth.
Yeah, this is my 5th year at Monmouth College. It's our 7th year that we've had both varsity men's and women's. Prior to that, I was a graduate assistant at Utica College in upstate New York, and I'm originally from the East Coast, Maryland, kind of your guys' neck of the woods. Our school, Monmouth, like I mentioned, we're in our 7th year as a varsity program. On the women's side, we compete in the CWPA D3 conference. And on the men's side, we compete at the Mid-Atlantic West Conference with Division II and Division III teams for both of those.
Excellent. And Monmouth is located?
We are located in southwestern Illinois, about 2.5, 3 hours from Chicago, depending where you're coming from, and about 2.5, 3 hours from St. Louis as well.
Okay, awesome. So take me through a little bit like how does the recruiting process work at Monmouth?
Absolutely. So for us, we're doing a lot of our talent evaluation, kind of identifying around your junior year. And there's a lot of different ways you can go about this. So as I mentioned, we're about 2.5, 3 hours away from a couple areas that have some larger water polo. So if you're from the Chicago area, St. Louis area, even some Ohio schools, we love to get you on campus kind of the summer in between your junior, senior year, or towards the end of your junior year when possible for some day visits. And then from there, we kind of progress to trying to get you applied and accepted to the school and get you on campus for some overnights. And that's kind of how that typically flows once you're already interested. And the start of the recruiting process can go a bunch of different ways. I do a lot of cold calling and texts from recruiting websites. We have a lot of relationships with high school coaches. And whenever possible, I'm out and about recruiting, trying to introduce myself and see some new players.
So do you mentioned that junior and senior year, have you had when would you suggest some athletes would they start the process? Typically for you as junior and senior year, have you had contact with sophomores, or how does that work for you guys?
So it can go multiple ways in terms of what we're legally allowed to do. There's only certain ages that we're talking to, but the big time for us is really that. So especially with St. Louis and with Illinois, you're in season for water polo towards the spring of your junior year. And that's really a very common time where around December or that second semester in school where you start recognizing I have either the ability to play in college, I'm interested in that. And that's when you start kind of coming into your own as an individual, recognizing maybe I'm interested in accounting. I'm going to look at some schools that offer something in that realm. So that's really when we do recommend that junior year. Your freshman year in high school, you don't know if you want a big school, small school, or anything. So it's a little early to start making your decisions that early on. But
Right. So the prospective student athletes that reach out to you or you reach out to them, what are some character traits you're looking for, as you kind of progress in the process?
So big things obviously is going to be just sort of your commitment to everything that you're doing. Excellence is not really going to be an exception. It's going to be the rule. If you're going to be a good student athlete, that means that you're not getting in trouble outside the pool. You're doing well in the classroom. You're doing well in the pool. We need you to succeed in all 3 of those areas. So it's not just saying, hey, I'm a great polo player, but I've got a 1.0 because I never go to school. That's not going to be a recipe for success. And obviously just your conduct and how you're doing anything. We're playing a contact sport. You're going to be getting in, doing early morning swims and lifting. It's not enough that you're just pushing yourself in games. What's your temperament like when you're on campus, when you're doing everything? That's a huge factor for us as well.
All right. So you want to get a whole picture.
Absolutely. Yep.
Excellent. So, you talked about some conversations, some cold calls, some text messages, and the communication you do with an athlete. How would you recommend an athlete prepare for, say, a phone conversation?
So the best thing for that is I love answering questions from the student athletes as opposed to me just peppering somebody on one side. It really helps. One, it shows me your interest level or your knowledge, or just gives me another idea of how you can fit into the team. If you're asking me, hey, I typically play on the, the 4-5 side. What's some things that you look for from these positions? Do you guys run zone defense? What are some of the things you like to do on your man ups? Just having specific questions for us is really, really great way for us to see how we could be a fit and different things like that. And another really important thing also is to ask questions about the school. Do your research on the school. Once you get your first coach that's calling you to set up a recruiting call, text, whatever it is, everybody remembers it. It's super exciting. You're going to get on that phone call just because it's fun to get on the phone call no matter what. But do your research on the school. See if there's a chance that, if you want to be a nurse and the school doesn't offer nursing, that's probably not going to be a fit for you no matter how good the water polo team is. So do your research on the school to see that maybe you're a fit for it, see what the financials look like, just have some ideas that the coach might be able to help with you in that realm. And then another thing is I love talking to the student athletes on their own, but it's really nice to have parents involved as well. Just sometime make sure that they're in the loops, that they're understanding what's going on. That really helps moving forward, that everybody feels like they're getting all their questions answered and comfortable with the school.
Yeah, I think those are some great recommendations for sure. As the kind of the world is right now with the COVID outbreak and the potential for, some large tournaments potentially being canceled, this spring, this summer, what would be your recommendation for athletes? How are they able to connect to coaches, be seen without the coaches actually, physically being at some of these tournaments?
Well, it's definitely a unique time. The one benefit of this is send me as much film as you want. I've got all the time in the world to watch film, so don't worry
Right.
about that. But there's a couple different ways. One, just if you do have any film, putting together little highlights of offensive skills, defensive skills, man up. Those are great skills to have. But we do like seeing game flow highlights as well. That's a really great way, everyone should look good on their highlights within some realm. That's why they're highlights. We want to see, how are you impacting a play? If the ball's on the weak side, are you engaged? Are you in the pass lane defensively? How do you impact the play when you're not directly on the ball on offense or defense? And it just shows a little bit more of a conceptual understanding and some different things like that. So while those highlights of specific skills are really a great way to show coaches some of your abilities, it is nice to see some of those longer clips so we can kind of identify some other things there. And a great thing about the water polo community is, it is a small world, but there's a lot of awesome coaches that have great connections with each other. Have your coaches reach out to other college coaches. Have a club coach that you might have played for. Have a high school coach. I guarantee you somebody knows somebody that we trust their word or know it at some value. So
Right. Yeah, it's a
use the
very
resources you
small
have.
world, right?
Yep, absolutely. So use those resources you have to stay in connection. And that helps a lot with that. And then finally, just be proactive as a student athlete, put together a resume that says, here's my academic highlight, my academic qualifications, here's my athletic qualifications. Do not be intimidated to start the conversation. We should be reaching out and we're hoping to find every kid that we think would be a good fit for us. But by all means, if you see, hey, I think I'm interested in D3 level and I'm interested in these majors, reach out to those coaches. No coach will ever be upset if you choose to reach out to them and introduce yourself with general interest. That's always going to be a positive.
Yeah, that's really very true. Don't be afraid to initiate conversation, and
Absolutely.
I think that's really good advice. So you mentioned the greater Chicago area, the St. Louis, some Ohio. Where do you do some of your some of your off-campus recruiting when you're not coaching the boys and the women?
So that's basically, I live in Chicago when I'm not here. During the amount of times that I leave women's practice in the spring, drive up to Chicago for a game or two and turn around, we have morning practice. So I'm up there as much as I can.
Right.
Our administration has been really supportive with growing the water polo budget every year that I've been here. So our travel has expanded every single year for me. So I do make it out to the West Coast and the East Coast periodically. You just got to tie it in a little bit more creatively. I'm from greater Washington, D.C. area. So I will go back there and try and knock out. It's really awesome to see how Maryland has been growing in water polo since I left. Pennsylvania's always had some really, really strong water polo. So trying to get into some of those schools. And then so the Midwest is where I'm going to be in person typically. But realistically, if there's some genuine interest, I can normally work with my administration to kind of get boots on the ground there. So we're trying to go anywhere that there's kids that are interested.
That's great. That's great. You're expanding your reach, and that's great to see that that's working out for you.
Yeah, that was our claim to fame this year was on our men's side. The whole starting lineup was 7 kids from 7 different states, which I was pretty excited about.
Nice. So there is opportunity for athletes to make an impact, right? With a smaller roster.
Absolutely.
That can you speak on that a bit?
Yeah, absolutely. So that is one of the things that we look at. And as I mentioned with water polo being a smaller, close-knit community, I can't tell you how many times I have had a coach either from potentially a higher division level or, a team that is just loaded up that will say, hey, this kid wants to major in something we don't offer. All of us coaches coach water polo for the simple reason that we love it. So there is a lot of support within the community about trying to make sure, we're not trying to recruit a kid to have him be the 20th kid on the bench. There is a lot of support within the community, I feel, to help grow a roster. And for us, one of the biggest things that I've been excited about is working on recruiting a little bit more for Monmouth so that we're having our higher retention rates, which we've had the past few years. That's really helped, making sure we're recruiting the kid that's going to be a fit for us in the classroom, that's going to enjoy the campus that we offer, that's going to enjoy the team that we offer, instead of just trying to bring 100 kids in the door that aren't going to make it longer than a semester.
Right. That's true. Yeah. You want to keep up you want to keep those, you want to bring athletes in who want to be a part of your program, who want to stay, 4 years, want to graduate, want to make an impact.
Absolutely.
So what piece of advice can you give a PSA that wants to play in college, whether it's Monmouth or somewhere else, but might not have the opportunity to get to a larger tournament or doesn't play at a big club? Somebody who maybe, from a smaller area.
One of the biggest things I would say with that, and I think water polo has gotten a lot better at this. I'm sure you remember from growing up, it's whatever state you were from, there was 5 other states that said your state stunk at water polo. So yours were holding yourself back with that. Don't marginalize yourself by where you're from, the size of your high school. There's some unbelievable kids coming out of schools in areas that typically haven't happened. We always, with the Midwest, we have had Midwest guys on the national team, which is a super exciting thing for us. And you look at them and they're not your traditional body types either. So that's been a really exciting thing. So don't use your location or the club you played on as a hindrance to what you think you can succeed at. If you're interested in doing so, again, put yourself out there and be proactive. We're looking for good athletes that are interested, and I can speak for every coach on that realm. It's our job to be talent evaluators. So don't tell yourself that you're not good enough before a coach gets a chance to talk to you, see what you can do, reach out, engage, push for the level that you think you can play at. And then it's on us to make sure we're going, hey, this kid's got some talent, they've got the academics, whatever it might be, let's pursue this route. Engage with any way you can. If you can't get game clips, then by all means hop in a pool and show some ball handling, show some shooting. It's not going to be perfect, but try and do anything to show off some skills in that realm. Have coaches reach out, like I mentioned. Really, any resource you have, use that. So the biggest thing would be just don't tell yourself ahead of time what you can't do. Put yourself out there and try and engage with coaches.
Yeah, that's a sage wisdom right there. So just to kind of wrap it up here, what take me through the day in the life of like one of your student athletes. What does that look like? What can a recruit expect? If they do matriculate.
Absolutely. So it depends with us being Division III, we have our traditional and non-traditional season, which can be a little bit different than some. So a traditional day in season. You're getting up, we're doing our morning swim, typically around 6 or so, depending on that. And we practice in the afternoons. We have a general schedule that we're looking for somewhere in that 3 to 5, 4 to 6 realm. But that just depends on our kids' class schedules. We have a fantastic strength and conditioning coach that we're lifting with every other day during the middle of the day. So in season, you're getting conditioning just about every single day, and we're having some strategy practices in the afternoons. Our biggest goal is that, we're not going to own you for 10 hours a day, but the hours we do have, we're going to make count.
Right. Yeah, that's true. So what would the next steps be for a student athlete if they're interested in Monmouth?
Absolutely. Well, the biggest thing is just, it's my job. I better be reaching out to you. But if I haven't for whatever reason, engage with us. All of our information is very public. Email, text, call. We're all on Twitter, anything in that realm. Whichever way you're most comfortable talking to me, I am more than happy to speak to you on that realm. So anything, if you have questions about the school, anything at all, please just reach out. You can reach out through your high school coaches can engage a conversation. You can reach out directly. Really, any one of those options works well.
Great. That's excellent, Peter. Hey, I really appreciate the time. It's been great to connect. This is Damon Newman from American Water Polo, and check us out on Instagram, Facebook, AmericanWaterPolo.org. And remember, it's important to stay connected to what's important to you. Thanks again, Peter.
All right. Thank you.